Tuesday morning, Sarah Stevenson Tuesday morning forum. We actually have a streaming audience, so be aware of that. We always start with a morning prayer. I'm going to ask Jackie to give us a few words. Thank you. Welcome, Mayor Jennifer Roberts. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. Okay.
All right, please join me in prayer. Gracious God, Creator, please bless this meeting this morning and all the people who care so deeply about our community. It is your commandment to love your neighbor, and that is what we do here in this community in Charlotte and in this Tuesday morning gathering. So please be with us in the uncertain future of which many of us are afraid, but we know you are with us and you walk with us every day. Thank you so much, and we give thanks to you in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay, as I said before, I am Mary Johnson, and I want to introduce our other facilitators. We have Winston Robinson right here. We have Laura McClady, Carlinia Avery Canty, Jackie Edwards Walton, Natalie McGillrath, Shay Abdullah, Gary Young. We have Dr. Thomas Moore, who is our musician. We have Steve Johnston on our computer along with Shay. And we have Miss Sharitha Sherrill, and she's back with us. Thank you. She's actually our chaplain. Our forum runs from 8:30 till 10 o'clock. We pause a few minutes before then for announcements. Any other announcements can be sent to Steve Johnston at sjohnston@tuesdaymorningforum.org. Okay. Do we have anyone here for the first time? Okay. And I'm sure that we may have first timers streaming with us, and we want to welcome them too. Okay, our guest today is Ms. Monifa Drayton, and she's here to talk about her business, and we are very happy to have her with us today. Following her presentation, we will take questions from the audience. Remember to raise your hand, and I'll call on you in the order that we receive you. We do want to welcome Mayor, the Honorable, I should say, Jennifer Roberts with us here today. Welcome, please come back. And I know that you're with us in spirit all the time. Okay, I have a wonderful picture of you with my mother, okay? I should show it to you sometime. Okay. And we do have a timekeeper, Miss Natalie McGillrath, and she'll signal when we have time limits, because we do ask you to keep your question to 30 seconds, and then we'll give Ms. Drayton a chance to. Okay, you can bring my gift on up here to me, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to let Ms. Drayton. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I do want to introduce Ms. Keisha Lewis. She's not a first timer, but I do want to introduce her because this is Diabetes Awareness Month, and that's something that hits our community pretty hard, and we need to be aware. And I think you're going to speak a minute or two about it.
Not a minute or two today, but my name is Keisha Lewis. I'm the founder of Weldom. I provide diabetes, mobile occupational therapy and diabetes services. It is Diabetes Awareness Month, and I'm actually on my way to the State of Diabetes that's going to be at Northeastern University this morning So I look forward to being able to come back and share with you about diabetes and diabetes particularly in Mecklenburg County. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and she will be with us at a future date. Thank you. Okay, Monifa.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay. I am so excited to be here today. And before I get started, I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I am not at liberty to talk about anything with my previous employer for obvious reasons. But I do want to say thank you so much for all of the support I got, all of the text messages. It was over 400 text messages. So I do want to say thank you to all those who are streaming as well. Thank you all so much for the support. I had an amazing experience, and I'll just say that, but I did want to address the elephant in the room because I'm sure people have questions that I'm not at liberty to answer right now. But so today, what I'm going to talk about, Miss Walton, she asked me to first give my why, to talk about my why. How did I get here, and where am I going, and where do we need to go moving forward? So we know that we had a very tough elections for most of us. Some of us are probably celebrating the outcome, but some of us are wondering, what do we do next? So today I'm going to talk about the new jelly bean jar. And the jelly bean jar, as you all know, during the Jim Crow era, people were forced to count the number of jelly beans as a way to determine if they were qualified to vote. We may not be using the jelly bean jar today, but there are definitely suppression activities that are in place that are preventing communities from voting. And I'm going to go into that in a little more detail, but I'm going to start with what you asked me, which is just the why and how did I get here and get in this space. So I'll give a little bit of background because a lot of people see me, but a lot of people don't know me. I'm usually a very quiet person, very behind the scenes person. I keep my baseball cap low, my campaign t-shirt on, and that's what I like. And now I'm kind of in more of a spotlight than I prefer. But so a little bit about me. I am a former healthcare executive of 22 years. Absolutely love my time in healthcare. But then what happened a few years ago? What happened? What big thing happened in healthcare? What happened? Y'all can talk back. It was a pandemic. And at the end of the pandemic, I decided to go into my own consulting business just to take a break to see what happened, to see what I could do, to just get some other experience, because that was the only place I'd ever worked. Now, I had received promotions multiple times, but I wanted to see what else was out there. So while I was there, I won plenty of awards, national awards, state awards, local awards for leadership, things in healthcare, did a lot in that space, and absolutely love it. I'll always be healthcare to my heart. Let's see, I'm also a global traveler. I love cultures, and I love communities. So when you see me in different communities, it is my authentic self, because I love learning about other people. So when I travel, you won't see me in the nice hotels. I'm probably staying in somebody's house, I don't know, a stranger or something, just kind of living in a really authentic space when I travel globally. One of my favorite things that I did, one of my most memorable, I taught in a country called Bujumbura, Burundi, for about 3 weeks. And I was the first African American to go to that country. That was my first insight into understanding the difference that we have. And it helped me here when I returned, because when I got off the plane, I thought, here I am with my African name, from the Yoruba tribe of West Africa, we all look the same, but I wasn't the same. And that was probably one of the most profound moments, because when I got off the plane, I was expecting to be greeted and welcomed, and they didn't understand that I was an American, but I looked like them. And when I started to speak, they all stopped and they said, well, are you American? And I said, yes. And that was when the learning happened. So initially, many of them were really, they just didn't like me. And what they told me is that I was a cotton picker. And they said that they learned history different. So they learned when Africans were enslaved and they came to America that they willingly let go of their culture and customs. So the fact that I looked like them but could not speak the language, I'm not much of a dancer, all of those things, I was pretty much an outcast in the group. However, it gave me the opportunity to teach Black American history from a truth perspective. And so by the end, they said, well, should we not like the missionaries anymore? I was like, no, absolutely. Continue to love the missionaries. They're helping you. But that was a very profound experience that taught me that even in subgroups, even in one group, there are so many different subgroups and cultures. So that was probably one of my most profound experiences, but whenever I travel globally, I learned so many things that I applied to politics. A little bit about my political background. I am one of the 9 cohort members for the James E. Clyburn Leadership Institute. I was part of cohort 1. During that time, for the whole year, we met with some of our top congressional leaders, global ambassadors. We really studied and talked about Black voter trends, and we are now kind of a really close group, a very close-knit group. But in that time, I learned a lot about what do we need to do in the Black community to make sure we drive the votes forward. Unfortunately, didn't see a lot of that happening. But you know, all is not failed, okay? These are some of the campaigns I worked on. Either I was the campaign manager or strategist, or I was a consultant. So the only one I was a consultant for and helped out a bit was Stephanie Sneeds. The others I led, and thankfully I have not lost the campaign yet, so grateful about that. And again, I usually apply, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I apply healthcare. I approach politics different than most because my background is healthcare. So I apply these strategies that I use in healthcare to politics, which is very different. It's a different approach, and I'll get more into that. So I'm going to talk about my why, and that is me. So I am from Buffalo, New York, born and raised. I was born in the inner city, but what was the paradox, I'll say, is that in my home, I had a mom and dad. I was the only person in my neighborhood with a dad. And so my dad was everybody's dad at that point. But I grew up in an environment where in my home, we were safe. But the moment I stepped outside of my home, I was in the inner city. But the thing about it is that it was normal. Drugs were normal. Selling drugs. Now, I never sold drugs. Those who did, my friends, everybody, it was normal. Even when I went to college, the first time I walked on the campus, I had never seen anybody have a new car that did not sell drugs. That was what I knew. And so when I got to college, my first day, my cousin and I were together, and I said, gosh, everybody here is selling drugs. Because people have brand new cars. But what I later learned is that, people were there, they had parents who had these professions. And people were there really, really legally. And to me, that was a surprise. And that was an eye-opening experience for me. And so as a child, I was always a very talkative child. And I tell my mom now, you owe me some time back, because now I get paid to talk for a living. So I was just practicing. But during my childhood years, I was always the same. I'm the same person who I was. I was always in a fight, always fighting for something, always standing up for someone. I remember the worst punishment I ever got. I was already on punishment for talking too much in class. And my friends came and, they knocked on the window and, they said my friend was in a fight, and I jumped out the window, ran to the park to fight for her. That is who I've always been. And I'm the same person now, except, I don't physically fight, but I'm always standing on I will if I have to, but I don't. But I'm the same person. So when you look at when I'm on the front lines, when I'm fighting for people, when I'm unwavering, when I won't stop, it is that same tenacity that I always had even as a child. When I see people hurting, when I see injustice, when I see discrimination, when I see racism, when I see bigotry, when I see people going into our communities asking for the vote, but you haven't done anything for our communities at all, I'm gonna fight every single time. Because our vote can no longer be pimped for the interests of politicians and political advancement when it does not impact us. I think about when bonds are passed. And so everybody leans into the Black vote to get bonds passed. But how many times do the bonds really impact the communities who voted for those bonds? So we have to really take a strong look at how are we approaching our Black voters. So when we talk about my why, my mom was a Black Panther, my dad marched with Dr. King. So that put me somewhere in the middle of how I approach justice, okay? So sometimes I'm like my mom and I'm burn the system down, and sometimes I'm like my dad, let's all kumbaya and come together. Turn your cheek. So it depends on where I am. And so Just again, talking about it, thinking about my why. So here I am from the inner city. Never imagined that I would reach the levels. My dream for myself was to be a manager of a call center. That is what I wanted to be. That was my goal, because that was the highest position that I saw anybody in my neighborhood work for, was the manager of a call center called something Lakes, Great Lakes. That was what I saw for myself. And so when I went to college, which is why I'm a firm believer, I know that a lot of times we like to encourage our children, especially, children in low income areas, to, go into trades. Trades are great, but there was something different that I needed by going to college. And that was, I needed to see a different world. And so when I look at how we approach even our inner city children now, when we're in the space of, well, why don't you just do this and why don't you do that? Understand their life is so normal. Everything they see is normal. Drugs is normal. Being able to go out on the street corner and make money fast is normal. These things are normal, and I understand that life. And so after I graduated from college, I moved to Charlotte, no plan. The only reason I came to Charlotte is because I used to come here to party on the weekends. I had no plan, I had no money. I was sleeping on my cousin's floor for 3 months, and finally she said, listen, you have to get a job. The party life has to stop. So I had big brothers, big sisters. For whatever reason, they hired me. I became director of a national program. And again, always in my mind thinking, how in the heck did you get here? You are a little black girl from the east side of Buffalo who saw drive-bys and who lived next door to a heroin house and who lived across the street from the crack house. How did you get here? You're not supposed to be in this space. But I kept persevering and I kept pushing. Again, this is what always makes me connected to my community. Because when I say my community, I relate most with those who are in the inner city, because that is where my comfort zone will always be. And so started working in healthcare, and I'll never forget on my first day, I walked in. Now here I am about 20, I was 21, somewhere around that age, first real job, thinking, how did I get here? What am I gonna do? I had an empty briefcase, and I only carried a little briefcase because I thought that's what I was supposed to have. Nothing was in it. As soon as I walked in, 4 black nurses came up to me and they said, are you Monifa? And I said, yeah. And they said, we've been waiting for you. We can't get promotions. They're not promoting, only promoting the white nurses. I didn't even know where my office was. They said, they're only promoting the white nurses. And then she kept talking and she said, they only hired you because you were black. And I was devastated because I thought, I got all these student loans, I did all of this college, I'm in college again, and you only hired me because of that. And so that night I called my aunt, who was 96 years old at the time, and I was crying so hard, and I said, they only hired me because I was black. And she said, Mo, now my aunt was 4'11", very fair skinned. She did not look black at all. She said, Mo, I was working for a company, and I sat there, she said, and everybody was my friend. The day they found out that I was black, they made me sit facing the wall. And she said I was not a part of anything that they were allowed to do. And when she told me that, she said, well, why are you crying because you were hired because you were black? If that is the case, what your job is to make sure that you allow for the space to bring everybody else forward. You now are charged with making sure that you protect the people who are in that organization. This is what you're charged with. You have been given a seat that they probably didn't think you should have. So you keep going. And that has been my why. When I was 21 years old and having that conversation and feeling like I was not supposed to be where I was, or I was only there because I was black, I have used that as my compass every time I go into a job. If I am here to be a token, I promise you I won't be. If I am here because you need a black face, I promise I'm going to be more than that to you. I promise I'm going to do exactly what my aunt told me to do 25 years ago. Stand for the people who need it. Stand for the right communities. So when we talk about my why, that is my why. That will always be my compass. That will always be my North Star. I will always be more comfortable in certain communities. I will always probably feel like, how did I get here? Every time I'll probably always still have that because I know where I came from. However, I have to always use every seat that I have to make sure I propel people forward. So continuing to advance, so during my years in healthcare, continued that same type of trajectory that I'm in now. Again, while I was in healthcare, someone, the HR came to me and they said, well, we don't understand why the retention for black women is so low and turnover is so high. I said, well, because we're not happy. because we're not getting the same opportunity. To shorten the story, I asked if I could have an affinity group for Black women. I was told no 5 years in a row. On that 6th year, they said yes. I called the ladies and I said, ladies, they gave us a yes. It was 5 of us. And I gave them a strategy and I said, this is what we need to do. And I got home that night and I said, dear God, please let other Black women show up, because I don't need this to appear that it was not needed. So I said, God, just give me 50. Just give me 50 women to show up. Well, when we got ready to launch and I was looking at the RSVPs, it got to 20. Then it got to 25. Then it got to 200. Then it got to 800. Then it got to 1,000. Then it got to 1,500. And we're trying to find new space. And then it got to 2,000. 2,400 Black women showed up and said, I deserve a chance. And so when we look at my why, the theme is the same throughout my life. Is I understand what the needs are, I'm going to connect the needs, and I'm going to find a way to make sure everybody gets what they deserve. And so that is my why. So when we get to where I am now, it was the same thing. It was the exact same thing. I'm here to make sure that I can reach the communities, because I know that everybody can't do that. I know that everybody can't go into different spaces. Everybody's not comfortable in different spaces. So that is where I got to my why. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the election. So how are we feeling post-election? How are we feeling?
Disappointed.
Disappointed?
Yes.
Does anybody feel shocked?
No.
Raise your hand if you feel shocked.
I do.
You do? You feel shocked? Tell me why you feel shocked.
Because we, as far as me and my skin color, we got out here and we really worked very hard because we believed in our democracy, number one, but we also believed that there was an opportunity for something different moving forward. For as number one, a woman, number two, a African American woman. And so when we didn't get that just kind of tore me to pieces, because I thought the world would be more open now. But clearly, you know, my blinders had to be knocked off. We're so just divided that it's just, and so I am in deep shock. So.
And that it is fair. I know, and it is still emotional. And I think for who else felt shocked?
But I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt, but can we not do it that way?
Sure, absolutely.
I need to, just, it's our process, and I said from the
Sure,
beginning,
absolutely.
we're gonna raise our hands, and they can still say what they're gonna say, but they need to raise their hand and let me call on them in the order that.
Got it. Okay, thank
Are
you
you
for that.
ready for questions?
Thank you for that correction.
Okay,
Thank you. I'll keep going. I'll keep going.
But before you keep going, I have a judge in the back that's gotta get to court. But I do want to give him a minute. Here, Judge Keith Smith, who was just reelected. I want to give him a minute to say something before he has to leave and go to court.
Yay!
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am thankful for your support. Fortunately, I don't have court today, which is very rare, so I'm staying ready. So I'll see you the rest of my time, but thank you all. We do need to keep justice out there in our forefront. As you've seen with this most recent election, there will be a lot of challenges, so we will have to do the work. We've always had to do the work, but it will be incredibly important that we do it now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. No, that was good. And I do want to just acknowledge you, Judge Smith. Can I tell you, he was out campaigning as if he had an opponent. So he was out canvassing and helping. So I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that, because we often don't see our elected officials out hitting the streets with the rest of us. And he was out there all of the time, and he was everywhere. So you deserve your seat, not just for showing up for the community and canvassing, but just for what you've done in the space of justice. So thank you. All right, so I'll keep going. So the political leaders that we saw, these are the women, and I have to give the women their flowers. These are the women who are leading the organizations that were focused on, they are the ones that were out they were hitting the ground, they were leading these organizations, they had the metrics. They had the strategy, they had the plan. So I would be remiss if I did not give flowers to my sisters who were in this fight every single day, far months ahead of time. And so Jocelyn Nally, who's over the Black Political Caucus, Amy Still, who's over the New North Carolina Project. She also had someone working with her, Rhoda Briggs, who was amazing. Robin Hamilton of the Urban League, NAACP, Corinne Mack, and then Team Unity, Rosalind Jacobs of Team Unity. They did an amazing job, so I have to stop and give them their flowers. They are never divisive. They have, even though I could not coordinate with them or work with them to a deep extent, I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge the power of Black women. Maybe this didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out, but I do know that these women were working and they were strategizing and they were doing the best that they could do with their communities. I'm so proud of every single one of them. So before I talk about the election, I have to acknowledge these women who were leading the Black vote in our community. If they didn't do what they did, I don't think that we would have even gotten to where we were. So I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the work that they had done. These are your political leaders in our community. All right, so let's take a quick look at the numbers. So total number of voters for our county is 840,000, 467,000 showed up. I knew we were in trouble when those early votes. If you're a Democrat, I knew we were in trouble. I was so sure we were in trouble, I went to one watch party and went home. I said, I just don't see how this is going to happen. And when the rain came down on Tuesday, I said, we are really in trouble because we needed a certain number of votes in order to win, and we were too far behind. And so when we look at the number of Democrats, 42% of Democrats turned out, unaffiliated, 36%. Now, I was putting my hope in the unaffiliated voters. I said, they're going to be the sniper to somebody. I said, they're going to either take out the Republicans or they're going to take out the Democrats, but something is going to happen. We're still trying to figure that out right now. So Republicans, 21% of our county are Republicans. So we're always a blue county. We're always a blue county. Our issue is never voter turnout. It's not voter registration, it is voter turnout. In the primaries, we were 93 out of 100 for voter turnout. We have a turnout problem, but it makes sense. Black registered voters, we have around 251,000, only 28% showed up. So I knew that we were in trouble. I knew we were in trouble. And then when we look at Black Democrats, 176,000, Black unaffiliated, 61,000, Black Republicans, 6,000. So when you have these numbers, you have to have a really strong strategy to make sure that you are reaching the Black voters. If over 50% of your Democrats are Black voters, then you need to have a really strong Black voter strategy. When we look at North Carolina, now I know everybody keeps saying, oh, Mecklenburg County, everybody's turnout went down. Because what was happening in 2020? We had Joe Biden, everybody was, afraid of former President Trump, everybody was out. And so that excitement from 2020 waned for the whole state and for everybody. Now we did fall below, Mecklenburg County's voter turnout did fall below the state level and Wake County. And it hurt because we have the most Democrats. But again, if people aren't showing up and turning out, this is where the problem is. So I don't want to spend too much time on the numbers, but let's talk about solutions. So this is not to edify me, but I'm going to talk about why I put this in here. So this was a text message I received. And when we talk about the jelly bean jar and disenfranchising people and how to make voting more inclusive, this is the key. So she sent me a text message. She said, I'll just skip all of it. She said, thank you for your leadership. Our community truly felt seen and heard. The connections you built and efforts to engage with us will always be remembered. This is the Jelly Bean Project. This is where we are. We don't actively and intentionally make sure that we connect with Black communities. We go into the Black communities and we ask for their vote every 4 years, but we don't take the time to understand communities. So when we say the Black vote, we think African Americans, but you have your Nigerians, your Liberians, your Congolese, your Tongolese. You have so many subgroups of Black communities and different Black people when you talk about the Black vote. So in order to get the Black vote, in order to understand the vote, I had to go into these different communities. I didn't ask them to come to a headquarters or to come where I was. I went into their communities. That was where I needed to understand, why are you not voting? And why are you choosing to vote this way? And what I found every single time, and it wasn't just with those from different African countries, but it was also those with the South Asian community. I worked with them. I worked with so many different communities, but I wanted to drill down and understand these subgroups. Why are you thinking this way, and what do you need? It wasn't just race and ethnicity. I was in the barbershops. One of the first barbershops I went to, Master Cuts, shout out to Big Ray. He gave me a beating when I first went in there, and I understood. He gave me a beating, and he said, "Well, you all only come every 4 years, and we need you to give money and all of these things." I said, "Well, I'm with a party. I don't have money to build infrastructure, but let's talk about how I can help you understand how your vote will impact policy and how you can use your vote and your voice and your elected officials to get what you need." It took that conversation. So when we talk about engaging Black voters, it cannot be a one-dimensional strategy. It cannot just be knocking on doors and making phone calls, because we don't answer our doors and we don't answer the phone. Okay, when you look at it, one of the Latino community members, and I never thought about this, but they said, "No, we're not answering the door. We don't know if it's immigration." So when you have a one-dimensional strategy to reach very complex communities, you will not reach what you need to reach. You will not reach your target. And that is the Jelly Bean Project. That is the initiative. That is how we block people out, by only having one strategy, one-dimensional strategy. Yes, knocking on doors works. Yes, making phone calls work, but it has to be more complex than that. So, and you also have to remember, a lot of people won't show up. We all use some type of voter database. There are voters who are not going to show up. So in September, a community member helped to ensure that I received $43,000 to mobilize. Now, it was 4 weeks outside of early voting, 4 weeks ahead, and I was like, how am I going to create a miracle in 4 weeks to mobilize these Black communities? And so what I did, I took the learnings from the Congressman James Clyburn Leadership Institute and applied that. Diverse direct voter contact methods. And so with that $43,000, I was able to do something that had not been done before. Again, I knew I couldn't create a miracle, but I knew that I needed to get it started. So I was able to take a portion of that money and hire a street team. What made me really proud of that is because I was able to take money and put it back into the Black community and hire people in that community to do street team work. So I want to thank Shay, because Shay was actually the company that I hired. And so that had never been done. So where Shay and his team worked, it created a force multiplier for me. They were everywhere. Usher concert, they were there, outside talking to people. On the corner of Tryon and Trade, they were there. They were taking things to barbershops. They were in front of Food Line. They were having direct voter contact. So when people knock on doors, your voter contact may be anywhere 4% to 19%. That means you are connecting very little. But when they were out talking to people, they were having 100% voter contact every time. And that is a way to diverse your direct voter contact. Also, if Black people spend more time on social media than anywhere else, the opportunity was always, Black people spend 5 to 8 times more on social media than anybody else. The opportunity to diversify was to constantly push out messaging. So when people ask me, and I can't give too much of my strategy when I'm a campaign manager, because I got campaigns coming up, so I can't give too much, but you have to be able to reach people where they are. So if people are on Facebook, you gotta be on Facebook. Now, what I learned, I hosted an event for collegiates, a virtual platform event last month. And I asked them, how can I reach you? Because I'm pushing all this great content out on Facebook. And they said, we're not on Facebook. The only time we get on Facebook is if our mother tells us to go look at something they posted. I said, really? And so why, if I'm trying to reach a younger audience, why am I posting on Facebook? I've got to go to where the younger audiences are. So again, diversify your direct voter contact methods. You have to have phone banking. You have to go knock on doors, but you have to have other things as well in place. Know your audience and know the issues. So while I was out canvassing, because once I saw that there was an absence, there was a lot of different groups, but they were all nonpartisan groups that were knocking on doors. There was only one group that was a party affiliated group, the Democratic Party. And when I looked, I said, okay, there's a lot of opportunity to go knock on these doors in the canvas team. A lot of opportunity to knock on the doors in the Crescent communities. So I started my own canvassing team. Shout out to Team T House, everybody. Elect, Ingram-elect, she was on the team, and Shay's group. So I created a core team. Yeah, she did a little bit. So I had Team T House popping. So we were in the Crescent communities knocking on the doors. But what we weren't doing is just knocking on the doors. We were having meaningful conversations. So one door that I knocked on, she opened the door, she swung open the door, and she said, I'm not ready yet, are we ready? And so she's in this harried state, and I said, wait, who do you think I am? And she said, because I had my South Carolina State sweatshirt on. So I said, who do you think I am? She said, are you with the eviction people? And I said, no, I'm not with the eviction people. I was here to ask you to vote, but I think I gotta have a different conversation with you. And so I didn't say, okay, well, I had to, in that moment, help get her what she needed. And so I started making calls, and I called Commissioner Griffin and I said, hey, listen, I need some help with this woman here. What ended up happening, her landlord told her that she could, that they had 3 weeks to move. But then he woke up that morning and changed his mind, and he said, no, you gotta leave today. And so here she is in a panic. I'm here with blue ballots. It now doesn't even make sense for me to have this conversation, but she was someone who was stuck in a scam of landlords. So I said, well, do you have your renter's agreement? No, he didn't give us one. Do you have a receipt to show you paid? No, he only allows us to pay in cash. Do you have a bill? No, we only pay in cash and he pays the bills. So in that moment, the voting needs and asking someone to vote no longer mattered. I had to figure out the issues. So as we are in these Black communities asking for votes, we have to have these deeper conversations. We can't go in there saying, hey, vote for Vice President Harris when their basic needs are not being met. So when we talk about how do we increase Black voter turnout, it is not 1 month, 2 months, 3 months before elections. It is now. We've got to start now. We have mayoral elections coming up. We have city council. We have all of these elections coming up. We start today on how do we address the needs of our community to make sure that they are engaged and ready and understand. When I was in the barbershop talking, it was basic understanding that was the gap. It was the gap of, well, I'm voting for Trump because I got a check. Well, let me explain how you really got the check. Let me explain how that really happened. Well, the economy was better. Well, let me explain to you how the economy was better. Let's thank President Obama for allowing Trump to have a good economy. So it was a lot of basic teaching and basic civics that needed to take place. So when I say know your audience and know the issues, the one thing that I heard, and again, another barber had told me this, he said, they send white people in here to tell us to vote. They won't even talk to us about what's on the ballot. I don't want to do that anymore. We're not doing that. Understand your audience and know the issues. Embed in the community. So when I was working with the South Asians, I read a book, Kiss, Bow, and Shake Hands, because I needed to understand how I needed to show up in different communities. I needed to be culturally appropriate. I didn't need to go in and just try to put my American ways on any of the communities. I had to learn how to be appropriate in all communities. So when we talk about reaching minority communities, you have to understand the community. So for example, working with the Liberian and Nigerians, they had to correct me because I thought, well, let's just do one big, and they were like, no. This is gonna be for the Liberians, and this is, not that they didn't get along, but there are certain cultural things that they needed addressed during this voter conversation. So we have to understand our communities. And then provide correlations. And when I say correlations, how does your vote impact your community? What do you need to know to impact your community? So for example, I'm always watching how, who votes and who votes which way and how will that policy impact the Black community. So one that comes to mind immediately is when the city council, I'm not bashing anybody, I'm saying facts here. When the city council last March voted to allow those who were sleeping on the bench or going to the bathroom outside, when they said, well, they'll now be arrested or receive citations. I was furious because if 75% of your black community are homeless, if you're 75% of the homeless community are black, you are now directly impacting my community. Because you are now putting them back in a system that they can't afford to get out of. So when you look at all of these different issues, this is what you need to look at. How are the community's issues correlating with what they see every day? So these are the 4 things that we talked about during the Congressman Clyburn leadership, and just things that I've always done as a campaign. I'm getting feedback from someone. Okay, I don't know what that is. But okay, so yeah, it is an echo. So when we okay, all right, let's see. I don't know why I'm getting an echo, but so when we talk about what do we need moving forward, so I want you all to remember these things. We start now, and we don't start with performative action. We don't start with going in saying, why didn't you vote? We don't start bashing black men, because I won't stand for that either. Black men didn't turn out to vote. Well, you didn't give them a reason. The reality is that the Republicans have done a phenomenal job with marketing to the Latino community and to the African American community, to the black community. We cannot blame, nobody is to blame for this election. Everybody is a wonderful quarterback on a Monday. But blaming any one party, any one person, any one group is not fair. It is not fair, and we cannot tolerate that. So when we talk about why we failed, this was a group project. We failed as a group. And so moving forward, when we say, oh, well, why didn't this person do that? Or why didn't the black people, why didn't the black men show up? Trump he did something that I thought is great, and we did it in healthcare. Years ago, I was on a committee called the Plain Language Committee. Years and years ago, because we were looking at why are people not showing up for their follow-up appointments. Well, if your discharge instructions are not in Spanish, are not in English, or if they are in English and the person only speaks Spanish, or if your discharge instructions are so complicated, or if your brochures are so complicated, then how do you expect them to follow it? So again, I take what I've learned in healthcare and I apply it to politics. So even, my clients who are my candidates, they'll tell you, when we work on brochures, I can't give all my secrets, but yeah, we're not going to have a lot of language on here. We don't need a lot of words. I know I'm not going to say too much, but let's lessen what we're saying so that people can understand. Trump did a phenomenal job with that. Trump is good. Trump is hard on crime. Trump protects the borders. He didn't talk about legislation and all of these things and referendums. He kept it at a 3rd grade level where he was comfortable. Okay, he kept it right there. And so that is what we need to look at as well. When you are going into certain communities, be on that level. Be careful though, because a lot of times when we talk about black people, we conflate black and poverty way too much. Black does not mean poverty, okay? It does not mean poverty. When you go talk to black communities, don't feel like you have to get into a hip hop dialect. That's not necessary. Okay, when you start to talk to Latino communities, don't start talking loud as if that's going to translate English to Spanish, okay? So be very aware of how you are approaching communities, okay? So those are the things I want you to remember, because again, when do we start? Now. When do we start?
Now.
We have to start now on changing the entire culture of the community. I am not interested right now in any type of conversations about how can we increase the black vote. I'm not in that conversation. The conversation I'm in, how can we change black communities? Black voting will come later. So we've got to talk about how can we truly impact these communities now. So what I want you to remember is diversify your direct voter contact methods. Authentically go into communities. Before you go, learn about the communities. I encourage everybody to read Kiss, Bow, and Shake Hands. There's several different ones. Embed in the community. When everything kind of blew up last week, one of the community members in the AA NPHI community, our Asian community, they were the first to say, well, what can we do to support you? Because you supported us. It was an authentic engagement into all communities. And always make sure you provide correlations. Okay? So again, I'm not interested in how do you increase the vote. I'm interested in how do we allow, or how do we create space for economic mobility. I'm interested in how is the City Council and County Commission going to make sure that MWBEs have a higher percentage of contracts. I'm interested in to know how are we going to help the homeless people, our homeless population, our unhoused population, when 75% are Black. I'm interested in knowing how will we increase the workforce. I don't want just more jobs, but how will they get paid the equal amount? How will they get paid livable wages? How will our mothers who are single mothers or fathers who are single fathers, how are they getting the child care and support that they need? I always randomly fall into meeting unhoused single fathers, and anybody who's on my Facebook page, you know, I'm always on there begging. Hey, I found another single father, he needs housing. I'm grateful for the community, but how do we get beyond that? Because people will start to send me $7,000 in 2 days to help get one unhoused man into housing. How do we get to these communities? So that's where I am. So if you want a conversation about how do we get to the vote, I'll be a part of the conversation. How do we get to helping Black people? And so that is the end of my presentation. Let me ask you, ma'am, can we?
Yes. Thank you. That was wonderful. Let's just give it a hand. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to start with our questions, and remember that you have 30 seconds, and I'm going to let you answer, and if you can keep your answers as brief as possible so that we can get as many people as we can, because we do have to be out of here by 10 o'clock, okay? So we're going to start with Jackie is actually first, and then Ken. Jackie, Ken, Tommy, and Carlenia, and Natalie.
Monifa, thank you so much for being here today. And I too started out at mental health on Billingsley Road. And I was pulled into a bathroom by a Black nurse during my interview to say I was here because I was Black. And I never heard anyone else tell that story. And that was 40-some years ago. So they were still doing it. But many things happened during this election. And I'm from the Black Belt, as many of you know. And our congressperson won, Don Davis, though it was a difficult race. My question to you, starting now, what is it that, I mean, you gave us an outline of what some of the things we should do, but what can one person start doing right now before the city council stuff gets started next June?
Everybody can have those authentic conversations. Deep canvassing starts with your family. During the summer, my niece was, we had a family reunion. My niece asked if she could stay in the room with me, and I said, sure. And so, of course, I'm gonna bring up voting. And she said, oh, I'm not voting. Now, first my mind went to, so where are you gonna sleep tonight? Because you can't sleep in my room. But we have to start having these, start in your small circle first. Look and see who in your circle, your family. Start having those real conversations. Again, it can't be an attack. When someone says to you, hey, you know, the economy was better under Trump, that's not your opportunity or time to attack. That is the time to educate. So start educating. So the same way we are aggressive in October about getting people and having these conversations, it needs to be a part of our regular conversation. Voting, and it's not just voting, but issues needs to be the topic of conversations every single time. Every time you're with someone, this can't stop. Also, if you are a part of civic groups or community groups, make sure you always have it, put that at the top of your conversation. I'm the chair of the Political Action Committee for Delta Sigma Theta. We have over 1,000 members in our chapter. I'm going to be on the agenda all year round, whether it's a vote or not, because I'm going to tell you what we're talking about. I'm going to tell you what's on the ballot. Right now, what I'm focused on is how can we work within what do we need to do in this Republican bubble now? So there are some things that I will be supporting that the Republicans are pushing. One is the Unborn Child Support Act. I'm all for that, which is men will start paying child support at conception. So I'm all for that. I'm all for that bill. You want to vote for Republican? We're going for the gusto on it now. So it's just some things I'm for. So start learning what is happening now and share that information. Next question. Mr. Coons?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I said, somebody might be listening and they decide they're gonna start.
I know that's why I'm treading lightly, talking high.
The black community is not monolithic, but that's what we a lot of times hear. And you nailed it as an issue and defining it, and thank you for that. You asked her if we were surprised with the outcome. For me, no. Was I disappointed? Heck yes, I was disappointed. But to hear you and what you have said brings me to a sense of needing to support. And I saw you out at the Catherine Summers Way, and I appreciated that. And I appreciate even more what you have done today. And to that, I put my money where my mouth is in your case. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Tommy.
He slid her a cash donation like an uncle.
Well,
You better take it for your school books.
It's not mine, but thank you. And I'll make sure it lasts for long.
All right.
I'm 77 years old, and I remember.
I don't think your mic is on.
It's on me. Hold it up to your mouth.
I'm 77 years old, and I've heard all the arguments. But black people had more stuff during segregation. They had more businesses, and they knew more America more under segregation than they did under integration. You know, so what do the black community supposed to do? I emphasize business and stuff since from the 3rd grade. I learned this was a capitalist society. You know, I appreciate the politics of America, but I think that for black people, we really need to do more for ourselves.
I agree, and I'll tell you, my granddad used to say, desegregation was the worst thing that would ever happen for black people. He did not believe in desegregation. He believed in segregation because he said the moment that we desegregate, the moment that we integrate, the moment we integrate, it would be an issue because black people would consistently forget about having their own and being self-sufficient and would always work to try to get and be included in spaces that they were not welcomed or wanted and would not be supported. And so that was his belief. And I still see some of that now because when you look at, black communities and the lack of self-sustainability and also the division that happens in our own community, we have to stop that. We have to come together. The constant berating black women and creating these divisive platforms, and we have to stop. And I'll always say it makes sense because we're functioning in a scarcity mentality, which is a historical issue within our community. And there are systems that are in place that have prevented our forward movement. When you look at something as basic as redlining, if we could not own property, we have missed out on generational wealth. So now we're already behind. There are so many systems that are in place that we need to address. But sir, you're exactly right. We do need to learn to be more self-sufficient. That's a part of conversations, real conversations.
You all are doing such a great job at keeping your questions to 30 seconds, and I do appreciate that. Okay, we have Carlenia.
She said that right before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you for everything that you said. And, I have said that I won't let my anger, other people have the power and can continue to anger me over the election. I agree with you on most things. My thing is, I do feel that we should be divisive, but I do think, as my father used to say, call a spade a spade. Superman is not coming. He didn't come. So I do think that we, in a very diplomatic way, need to tell individuals or call them out if you did not vote. Or, because to me there's no reason. But yes, I do agree that you need to have a conversation. And when you look at the percentage of who did and who didn't, we need to tell the truth to individuals, and maybe we do that in a very diplomatic way. But there are upcoming elections. You just said something. We have got to stop being divisive. There used to be a time when folks would come together and decide, we're going to endorse Laura. That's who we're going to endorse as a united group. We don't do that anymore. We let 15 people run. Then we malign people. We malign people in office. There's a way to do it. It's like a private conversation rather than to, write a letter. Then, we have someone in office who's doing a great job, and we, as city council people, we fight that when another person is making even more money. So we're very divisive as a people, and we need to call that out. Now, do I have a question? No. But I just needed to say that. We have got to stop, and we have got to unite and to work together.
I definitely agree, and one thing that we did, so I agree with the, having 15 people to run, and I agree with that. When I speak about division, I speak about division within the Black community. That is something that has to stop. I mean, I've seen recently some very hateful emails about me. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. It's not true. Especially when you don't even have the right information. Right. It's definitely not true. Information is loud, wrong, and strong. So we have to stop these types of behaviors because it's not helpful. And I do agree with that because the Republicans did that. The Republicans, they stick together. They know that Trump is crazy. They know that. Let me say nonpartisan. He may not have been the most qualified, but how many times did you hear them stand and speak against them? None. None, right. We have to really get to that in our community.
One minute, Natalie, and then.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. It was my thoughts, way before the actual election, that it wasn't about Trump, and I think he had very little to do with the whole election. To me, it was about survival of a race of people that are going to become a minority, and they're afraid. And to me, that's what we were fighting. Not only that, but I agree with you. The Republicans have been strategizing for a very long time on how to make this happen. And they have done a lot of things, including the constitutional amendment that they had on our ballot. And that is to get fewer people qualified to vote. It is totally, to me, voter suppression. And I can go on. There's so many things that they have done years and years ago to make this day come about, and that's what it's about. It's about how do they survive as a minority when they know minorities were not treated very well. But what I don't know, and I would like to know, if you know, if every registered Black person in America had voted, would the election have come out differently?
So without having all of the stats on the number of total voters for the country, I can't answer that. But if more Black people than 28% would have shown up in this county, we would have definitely had and the state, we would have had because if you think about when Trump won in 2020, he won by 73,000 votes. 500,000 Black people did not vote in the state that year. So if Black people understood our power and understood our opportunity, how much of an influence we can have, we just got to learn how to work in the system and work the system. And that's where we miss out. So my guess would be yes, but without having the solid data, I'm not comfortable giving a confirmed yes.
Okay, I'm actually next, Yvette. And my question is simple. Looking at the outcome of the vote, and Trump took the top with President but the next 4 highest offices went to Democrats. Okay, so does that mean that, and this is my interpretation, that Democrats voted for Trump?
Yes.
And then the other 4, because if those 4 had it, then I would think that if Harris had gotten their vote, that she would have been top of the ticket.
So I don't have the deep down data yet, but absolutely there were Democrats who voted for Republicans, who voted for Trump, absolutely, and I'm positive of that, because even when I was out, doing deep canvassing, the number of people I had spoken to who said that they were voting for Trump because either that they felt that the economy was better under Trump, that they had more opportunity under Trump, there were plenty of things, and what made this whole election, this whole process so apples to oranges is because Trump was president during a pandemic. And so that was so there were a couple of things when people kept saying, well, we're going to do exactly what we did during President Obama's campaign. We're going to do the exact same thing. That was in 2008. The world has changed drastically. So when I was saying, we knocked on 500,000 doors just like we did during Obama's campaign, that was 2008. That was before TikTok. That was before everything. So it doesn't, those strategies don't necessarily work. Some of the fundamentals do, but we have to look at voting totally different. We are in a totally different post-pandemic society now. Totally different. So we have to approach it in that way.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in just before you start. We have a number of people on the list, and we may not get to your question if we're going over our 30 seconds. And so we need to be respectful of everybody in here to give them a chance. Not you, but I'm talking to the audience. If you have to stay within your 30 seconds. Thank you.
I'm going to do my very best.
Okay, Natalie, could you make sure that...
But we do need to let her know, we need to try to bring her a minute.
Yeah, keep yours as 1 minute. But Natalie, could you be mindful? Okay,
we're going to start doing that, because we want to make Carlene look bad.
Okay.
To follow up on Ms. Mary's comments with regard to how many I got 406,000 votes, which I thank everybody for. Our president got 374,000 votes. I'm a new candidate. I'm going to read this very quickly. It's from Ken Harris, PhD. He's the National Business League president. He said, the Black community is suffering because too often selfish Black leadership has failed to prepare the next generation. Outdated leaders continue to gatekeep and hold on to power instead of advising, preparing, guiding the next generation from behind the scenes. Can you comment on that?
I agree 100%. Too many of our leaders do not have succession plans. In any corporation and company that does well and survives, there is a succession plan. We have to tap into all of even our local leaders. Who is your successor? And who are you raising up to take your seat? Because you won't be here forever. We're seeing that even at a federal level. Who are your successors? Who's going to, and I worry about that all the time. I think about the events that you have at the fundraising events, Ms. Ivory, that you've had at your home. Who's going to do that in my group? I don't know anybody in my group who's having these, major fundraisers for candidates. There needs to be a replica of what is happening just from a campaign perspective, as well as ensuring that our current elected officials have succession plans.
Thank you for being here, Mo. How are you?
Good.
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad you talked about housing and stuff and talking to the people, because that is the problem. And as we see, that's why a lot of people didn't vote. So because of the housing piece, and we have so many people on the street. So my question to you is, we talk about working together, and you mentioned all those women on the picture. Were they working together? Were they working independent? And if they were not, so what is our action plan for right now? Because we need to talk about action instead of just keep talking.
Okay, so as far as the action plan, these are the 4 points on it. We have to start having these conversations now. Now, just as a reminder, many of you in here probably already know this, as a party, you can't work with or coordinate with other 501c3 organizations. So our hands were tied. We could not really coordinate or work together. But as far as strategies right now, we definitely need to start having these real conversations. There needs to be a debrief, which there are several different debriefs. What I see happening right now, though, is everybody is going back to their silos. I've been invited to 4 different groups to talk about what is the next steps, what are the next steps. So we have to have a true community, what are the next steps, starting with what does the voters need, what are their needs, and how do we increase the vote. But we have to have a strong debrief and put a strategic plan in place. One of the groups that I'm a part of, I presented a strategic plan yesterday, which we're executing on.
All right, thank you so much for coming, Monifa. I appreciate all the work you do. My question is about to seem crazy for the idea of me being a black man in the South, but my optimism comes from the fact of, well, the idea of states' rights. Now that we've had this election and the Democratic, we've broken the supermajority and we have Josh Stein as governor, how can we organize, or what should we do in this threshold to prepare for the next 2 years to gain for the 4 after? Because one thing we do know is, I think the angst or the anxiety with the left is when we have an opportunity to do stuff, that's when we find out how moderate or how, there's no sense of urgency in the party. So what can we do to ensure that we take full advantage of the opportunities we do have to set us up for the next federal election? As my pastor Ricky Wood says, you'll see the judge before you see the president. So how can we, again, I still, I'm okay, you're right, go ahead, I'm absolutely right.
Listen, between those two, they are cracking the whip on us. Do you hear me? So what do we need to do? It's not just at a state level. It is at your local level. You have to be at these city council meetings. You have to be at these county commission meetings. We are a very narcoleptic community, which means we get excited and hype on an issue, and then 3 days later we forget about the issue and we jump onto the next issue, and we never really know what's going on or create solid solutions. We have to read the legislation that is coming forward. We have to be involved. I read Congress.gov every morning because I want to see what are the top 10 issues that are being discussed. We have to read these legislations. We've got to be in the know. And so that is where we start. It cannot be just we're picking up all of our information from Facebook. It can't be that. We have to go to the places where the real information is, and we have to be into it. And when we see something, hold them accountable. Yesterday I posted about the veterans, it's the veterans cost of living adjustment. So while everybody is saying Happy Veterans Day, well, what I need you all to do is go ahead and write your senator and tell them to go ahead and pass this veterans cost of living adjustment. So we've got to be aware of what is going on so we can make change.
Yes. Okay, Saritha, Jay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
But I wonder if I'm the only one who feels that she should have addressed the fact that he asked voters to vote early. She did not. She was up against a master planner, a master who does what he does and does it well in the business world. But she never addressed the fact that he was asking folks to vote early, and I'm wondering what happened to all of those early votes.
The early votes for the Democrats or the Republicans?
Republicans.
So I think, and I just read an article yesterday about that, how they did change it. They changed course because remember during the last election, he told everybody go vote on election day. They changed course this time and had everybody to go vote early. And I don't think they cannibalized their votes. And that usually happens when you have everybody to vote early. When you look at what the turnout was for the state, white Republican women were the top to come out during early elections, followed by white Republican men. Then you didn't see really much of a drop-off. So they were targeted. They knew exactly what they were coming to do. And so what happened to those votes? I think those votes were counted, and that's why he's in office. Because they switched course and they switched strategy. I don't think that, my personal perspective is that when I saw that Vice President Harris was going to be put up to run, I thought, here we go. another black woman coming to clean up a white man's mess, and she is not going to be successful at it because it was too late in the game. As a campaign manager, I'm working on campaigns now for the spring. So I could not see how it was going to be possible to switch course so quickly with only 100 days. I thought that it was an unfair step. I think she did a phenomenal job, but I think that she was put up to do something almost impossible. Because that messaging that was needed for her campaign should have started way soon as that message to black communities, Latino, that should have started when Biden said he was running for president. That should have started while he was president. So I think she was just put in a tough situation.
She was.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay.
Thank you. Hey, Mo.
Hey.
Thank you for being here. I saw you recently at the commissioner meeting. This is amazing what you laid out. So I'm going to ask this question in the same way that you can answer it. What do we need to do to get the federal Democrats on the federal level to adopt these things, these strategies relative to campaigns?
So I'm not exactly, now that's a good question. I'm not, because you have your DNC, you have, your leadership. I'm not exactly sure. I am going to, because with the Congressman Clyburn group, they were very aware of, the resignation, things that have been happening locally here, directly impacting me. And so there's conversation happening, but I don't know if this is, so from a federal perspective, they do adopt some of these already, and maybe all of them, but it is really how do we get, sometimes trickle down doesn't work. So I strongly feel that when you have when you have a federal election, I really think they need to tap into local campaign managers and strategists. Because what is happening in Raleigh may not translate well on a local level. Doug Wilson, who, God bless him, he was my partner in crime. We were talking about data every single day and just kind of looking, and we were drawing things on the whiteboard, and he is a master strategist. And so someone like him and having a group of local strategists and campaign managers and what needs to happen, because we know to do this, but how can someone from a federal level say, Mo, I need you to go into Fourth Ward Barbershop? They're not going to know. You need local talent on the ground who's done it before, not, hey, I just want to do this. Hey, I'm just excited. Hey, I want some spotlight. People who have done the work and proven the work.
Mo, are you a part of are you going to be a part of the convening of the debriefing of the groups? Did I hear you say earlier, that's what we need?
I said that's what we need. But you know what?
Because we would definitely like that to be an announcement as part of the forum.
Yeah. So no, I did not say that, but I would definitely consider it though, because it needs to happen. There needs to be a conversation where everybody comes together. The only thing is that I know there's so many groups doing that right now, so we got to just really find out which groups are already doing that and go from there. But we do need to have a solid convening of what is the next steps, where we can say let's not wait till a month outside of election to say who are you going to vote for mayor. Conversations have to start now.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Ken. And then Charlene Bishop.
I forgot my question.
Just give me some more money.
Senior moment. You want to come back? Okay, we'll let Charlene go and then come back to you, okay? And you write it down, Ken. All right.
I feel you because I'm having senior moments too. Miss Monifa Drayton, this has been so phenomenal for you to be in front of us and to talk in this personal manner as well as professional. Now that was my piggyback. You being such a success in what you do. You did mention that you had 4 different groups that you will be entertaining. Would you be willing to utilize your influence to bring those groups together so that it can be more of an impactful conversation versus just 1, 2, 3, 4, and this and over here? That is our problem, because we have leaders or leadership that do not pull together. They stay in their silos and they try to build their influences with their little base. But I feel like their leadership should bring more people together. Would you be willing to do that as well?
I definitely would. And so I'll talk to, and you know what, and I'll thank you for saying that, because I just looked at my political leaders. One person out on there is Janice Robinson. She and I are in conversations. Janice is amazing, and I talk to her almost every day at 5 a.m. I cannot believe I didn't put her picture on there. But the reason that just reminded me, she is a political leader, and she and I are having discussions as well. But I need to see all of the different groups, because it's not just the 4 I know about, it's others. So I need to see exactly where everyone is. Now, but I'm also, still, trying to find a job. So I gotta find it. But no, seriously, definitely will consider that though. So give me a moment to think about how I can do that, and who can help facilitate that.
Okay, go ahead.
What is your timeline in terms of all this planning that you're doing, what you're going toward and hope to do, when you will actually have a clearly defined program of work into how you're going to go forward with this? Because 2026 will be upon us before we know it.
Absolutely. So there's a group of us. There's some things that we have started working on now. I do want to mention this. One of the major things that we need to focus on are organizing the unorganized precincts in the Democratic Party. We have over 40 Black unorganized precincts. When a precinct is organized, voter turnout increases by 28%. So when you see white communities that are organized, their voter turnout is going to be higher. We have to, and shoot me an email, I'll show you which ones are not organized. It is, it's not a lot to being it depends on how deep you want to get involved. But being a chair is not a full-time job, but it is necessary to make sure we have these 44 plus Black precincts organized. Otherwise, every year, every election is going to be the same thing. So I should have had that as the first step, but I'm trying to keep this now a little bit nonpartisan. But for the Democrats, organize the precincts. 44 Black unorganized precincts is significant. So work is going on with that. I don't have permission to tell you to go, Colin. Miss Mary, somebody has a question.
I'm sorry, okay, cool. Thank you so much.
I'm going to speak in a partisan voice. I'm standing before you as the president of the African American Caucus for the North Carolina Democratic Party. When you're talking about precinct organization, we actually had an implication here in Mecklenburg County where your Mecklenburg County Party chair thought that they were going to tell us that we couldn't get to our people to organize Black precincts. What ended up happening under the presidency of Philetta Donnell, under the AAC for the state party, was that because of Mecklenburg, we had the whole entire plan of organization change so that we have jurisdiction over our precincts across this whole entire state. So when you're talking about partisanship, that's what I'm working on in this community and across the state. So implore you to make sure that people are being educated as you're organizing these precincts. They don't even understand what precinct organization means. They don't understand the power of what they have in this party to do so. They don't understand the precinct numbers tied to city council, tied to county commission, tied to school board. They don't understand that. We need to educate our people, and we need to reclaim our place in this democracy.
Thank you so much. And Colette should have been on this political leaders too, because Colette just had to give me permission to get into a database. So she is one of our political leaders too. So thank you for everything you do, Colette. Thank you, thank you. She has done a yeoman's amount of work to make sure we're moving the African American vote as well. So, and she's exactly right with this precinct. She said something I can't say right now because, my situation, but you're exactly right. So thank you.
This has been phenomenal. I just wish we had another hour with you, Mo. This has been, let's give her. We appreciate you and all you've done. Okay, we're opening up for announcements now. Do we have any announcements, Ken?
Next week.
Are you making an announcement? Okay, make an announcement.
Next week I will be presenting my draft of We the People Alliance. And it's designed to do exactly what you just mentioned at the end there about organizing precincts and holding precincts for what it is we want to get from them. So I invite all of you to tell your friends to come back next week, tune in next week, because as many of you know, I don't bite my tongue. And if I do, I just say, it hurt and bite it again.
Okay, thank you. Jackie?
Mary, I just want to know, would it be possible for the persons who came in later, who've only been here 1 or 2 times, to be introduced?
Oh, sure. If you came in later and this is your first time here, please introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning. First of all,
Hey, Willie.
I'm so glad to be here, and I really do appreciate all the work that's been doing the Tuesday morning breakfast. My name is Willie Fleming. I'm the previous president of the state of North Carolina African American Caucus, and now I'm the founding president of the International Minority Coalition.
Colette Austin Powell. I just got married in July. I'm standing before you as the president of the North Carolina, the AAC of the North Carolina Democratic Party. This is my second term, and I'm so thankful to come off next year. But a quick announcement is that we will be releasing a statement on what we're wanting to have from the party. It's going to hurt a little bit to the party on this whole notion of this still Jim Crow mentality that is going on in this state. How we get the people that are at the top of the ticket, it's great that we got a Josh Stein in, it's great that we got Rachel Hunt, it's great, but how the hell do they get there in order for us to have to be able to vote for them? So I'm having a conversation, I'm putting it out on paper, it'll be coming from the AAC. Just know that we are working for us within this party.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Yes, Brendan.
Wait, we got one more.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Evelyn Minter. I am a community leader / activist / advocate from the West Side. I am on the ground every day, up close and personal. I am one of the ones at my age who was knocking on doors, calling, and so many of the points that you made I found to be true. When you have to, when you're up close and personal with someone and you have to explain who the candidates are, that's sad. Yeah. That's sad. And the last thing I will say, I was in the barber shop, and after, as I do a debrief of what I was doing, I thought, why am I in the barber shop? That should have been a man's place. That's just my opinion.
Thank you so much.
I am a dear friend of Jackie Edwards, and so what I used to do. So I was the first African-American woman in IT for Mecklenburg County government. I had a long career with Mecklenburg County. I experienced some of the same things that you did. One story I'll share real quick. I went to Boston with my team, and it was me and a group of males, white males. And a lady thought that I was the secretary. I said, no, I'm the boss. So, yes.
I know it all too well.
Hey folks, my name is Cameron Pruitt, and I just wanted to remind folks too that ballot curing is still happening. And because of voter ID this year, we are seeing a huge shift in its black and brown voters who were cast provisional ballots. I know of at least 2 folks who didn't even know the ballot they cast was provisional and are finding out today that they need to cure it. We have till Thursday at 5 p.m. It's making sure their vote counts. Their vote, if it's provisional, does not count until it's been cured. If you would like to help with that process, Carolina Federation, the county party, I have a couple links if you want to help out and do that, make sure every vote does count. There are several races, especially our state Supreme Court race, that could be flipped if we cure enough ballots. So happy to talk more about that, happy to connect you with resources, phone banking, door knocking. We have till Thursday at 5 p.m. to make sure people's votes count.
How do you cure a
you go talk to them, usually it's photo ID, they didn't have it with their photo ID when they went to vote, so they have to prove their ID. They have to go to the Board of Elections, over here in Vancouver, and prove that. Most of the time it is, they didn't have the photo ID with them, they went to have it.
Okay, do we have another judge in here? We don't. Okay. Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming today. We want to thank Monifa, wish her all the luck, and we're going to support you in what you do. That's number one. And please come back next week. Our very own Ken will be presenting. Bring your friends and tune in. Thank you. Have a great day.
Right.